My name is Anna Goldstein.
My name is Michael Kaliski.
My name is Neelam Sethi.
My name is Angel Indo.
My name is Retha Clark King.
I'm a recovering physician.
I'm the CEO of Sustainability Associates.
I'm a professor of psychology at Virginia State University.
I am the founder and executive director of Ben's Bells.
I'm an 8th generation rabbi, and I'm the president of CLOW.
Compassion for me is being kind and sensitive to the feelings of someone else.
I think about compassion is the ability to recognize what other people are experiencing and needing, and having the impulse or the desire or the will to help people in some way or another.
I think it has sympathy, and some of those other words have kind of a short-term time horizon to them. Compassion, I think, is a longer time horizon.
For me, it means that I'm treating others as I would like to be treated myself, kind of a golden rule kind of process. But part of it is acknowledging the connection that I have with everyone else. So I don't see others as separate from me, and so therefore the expression of compassion seems to be a natural response to that worldview that I'm trying to cultivate.
When I think of compassion, it's got to be authentic. It's not just feel good. It's literally relating directly to that person.
I think compassion is just being present to someone else's experience and noticing in my body when I have an emotional reaction to that experience, not necessarily doing anything.
Being with people in their need means we have to be thorough in addressing the causes of what brought those needs about. And be comfortable with humbling ourselves to know that for the most of it, we really don't have answers for people.
Compassion is identifying with the other and their suffering, where they're hurting, where there's weakness and vulnerability, feeling that a little bit in that identification, because in the end our pain really is unique, but trying to identify with it, and then hopefully that identification is generative into some sort of action.
I love the Dalai Lama's perception of compassion, which is to be able to, if you see someone suffering, and you see them with a burden they have to lift, what you do is you crawl underneath that burden with them and lift it with them, so that they're not lifting alone.
I remember reading one time that compassion is love with wisdom, and that stuck with me, and I think that is true. I think when we open up our hearts, we open up ourselves to wisdom, and we learn how to be more compassionate by how we're treated or how we see other people respond in some ways.
Love is the most important thing in the world, and in the universe, for that matter, and in my opinion. And compassion is the expression of that. Oftentimes the actual action expression of love is compassion.
Compassion's important because if we don't have it, we're screwed.
I certainly believe in the concept of compassion. I think that's important. I think that is uniquely a human characteristic and something that's important. And it doesn't matter whether you're a leader or not. I think it's just something that should be kind of like a base level of humanity.
It's our humanity. I think it's about taking care of ourselves and each other, which
is just sort of one of my assumptions now, is that that's what we're supposed to be doing.
But I would say compassion is important primarily because we're not, because we're interconnected. Because we can't, I won't be able to be truly happy if I allow the suffering of others to continue.
You have to have something that drives you to do what you do. For some people it's compassion, for some it's, fairness, for some it's love. But I think it's just one of the many reasons to do what you do in life.
It is a better experience for me in the world to lead with compassion, and I think it becomes a ripple effect, I hope, and that the person who interacts with me has a good experience, and that carries on.
Compassion is actually a way of being that permeates everything that we do. And if we exercise the muscle regularly, we won't have to stop and think about it each time. We'll automatically come to someone's aid if we see someone in distress.
Well, it's important to me because this is my life's journey. And I think it's important in a larger sense because it will lead to a more well-functioning world if we can start to see the connections between things. I think in the West, we've kind of gotten used to the idea of individualism and separation. Our main way of gaining knowledge is analysis, which is pulling things apart. And so this is like a new way of viewing things where we see things as connected rather than separate. We see things as part of one whole rather than as individual pieces.
I don't think we can live isolated from others and the world without suffering terribly and finally dying, without love, without joy, without connecting with anyone. That would be the worst possible outcome for a human being.
I don't. You did. I think I'm just a regular guy trying to do some good.
That's not something that is a thought form of mine, but I would say that I strive to be.
Well, I guess I would say I'm an aspiring compassionate leader.
I identify as an aspiring compassionate leader.
Well, it's hard to sort of self-identify as a compassionate leader.
I identify as a compassionate human being. I don't necessarily identify as a compassionate leader.
I don't know that I identify or self-identify as a compassionate leader. I think that's for others to make their own decision and judgment on.
Right, I think that identification is probably 50% from outside and then the other 50% inside. That when people identify me as being a compassionate person, that also helps me understand that I am a compassionate person.
Part of my personal journey is to be a more compassionate person, to be a more conscious person. And so I try to infuse that into everything that I do.
And I am sure that I have practiced it, but I'm not sure that I would have told people that that's what I was doing consciously, being compassionate in my leadership. So I have given some thought to what aspect of compassionate leadership I have practiced on purpose and some of the results that I've accomplished with that.
Well, I do my best to live my life mindfully and compassionately, and use what I've learned and my skills to inspire other people to follow along their path of compassion.
I am always evolving and dialoguing with myself to be as compassionate as possible. And why do I do that? Is because I think that we need more compassion in the world.
I try and do my share to help make this world, and especially our Tucson community, a little bit better. my efforts aren't as grand as a lot of other people may be able to do, but I give from my heart totally, completely.
I think, probably this capacity to listen and to see other people around me as bringing the totality of who they are, and not forgetting that these are whole people.
I learned very early as a storekeeper's son that people from every walk of life are still people. Black, white, brown, yellow, poor, rich, and our store in Schenectady was right at the crossroads and if you run a small store, mom and pop grocery store, you get to work with all kinds of people every day. And so in that period of my life, unconsciously, fed into me the notion of our common humanity.
I see myself as human first. So that includes religion, gender, certainly there's certain roles I've taken on, certain conditioning that I've had. But in everything I do, I try to just see the other person in the relationship, whether that's across an email at a different company, even if it's a transactional relationship. I believe that you're having a human relationship first.
I think there can be. I don't think there has to be. I don't think somebody needs to, spill the beans, talk about all their suffering in their life in order to express and to be compassionate. People can just be, and sometimes I felt like that's been my role as well, as just be a compassionate presence in the room,
Is helpful, because if you give something about yourself away, right? If you're honest and you share something about your own life, the other person is more inclined. Sometimes they don't care because they just want to vent. And I've been in conversations for like an hour with people where after it's over, they say to me, "Oh, it's been so great chatting with you. And all I did was listen to them. I didn't say anything about myself." But most of the time I find that if there is some self-disclosure in the process, that builds a foundation of trust that goes beyond just appreciative inquiry.
Sometimes you have to open up to the people that you talk to so that they can open up to you. I have shared some personal things to people that I have helped, but not in the way of self-disclosing, or not. It was more for the benefit of the person that I was with rather than my own benefit, because God knows I was hating every second of me sharing something.
Most of us are not trained initially in self-disclosure. Usually issues come up over time and in life where you wind up, whether you like it or not, wind up self-disclosing more than you might naturally want to. It's kind of natural for us, I think, to want to keep things to ourselves. So, but to learn that and to be compassionate for yourself is probably the first step in being compassionate for others.
I don't know if or how there's a correlation there. I think that sometimes I share things about myself because it makes other people feel better or safer. And so maybe that's a way that it could be related, that if you're telling me something challenging or personal and I say, I also had that experience, or I know how that feels, or that really resonates for me because of something that happened to me, and I share something about that, I think that can help a person feel better and safer. And so I think that might be related to being a compassionate leader.
If you have if I have an experience that's similar to a person that's suffering, if I self-disclose that I have had that experience and that I do know how painful it is, sometimes that can help. Sometimes you have to do it in a careful way though, because you don't want to dismiss their experience, like, oh yeah, I experienced that and look, I'm fine. I wouldn't want to do that. But if I can say, I really do know how painful this is, this happened to me too, and whatever I can do to help you, I want to help you.
We use self-disclosure for the benefit of young people, not because we want to get something off our chest or want to be seen or get something from them. So the compassionate aspect of self-disclosure, the relationship there is the compassion is we're fully thinking about how's this going to support and help this young person.
I was a pretty angry kid because I was told I wasn't smart. I was told I was dumb. I was told I was not bright like my brothers and sisters, but I was special. And so I lived a life of going through that, running away from that pain, hiding from that pain, but then coming out on the other side and realizing without that experience, I could not meet anyone and connect with them the way I do.
When you disclose something about yourself, you are laying bare your heart. And that is a very powerful connection. And when you are able to do that, the other person also feels that they are in a safe place because you have bared something that is so personal and intimate to you.
I coach. I've done a lot of coaching over the years as a holistic physician. And at one point in time, I had a patient come to see me because her father was dying. And my father had just recently died. So I was in this really tender spot. And it was like, what's the words? I needed to let her know that I could understand her pain. But I didn't want to turn the session into being about the grieving I was still doing. So there's that delicate balance between opening it up and allowing somebody in and flooding them with way more information than they need to know. I think that's what the boundary is.
Intention is so powerful. So with the intention to help the other person, to disclose something that to make them feel less alone, less isolated in whatever their problem or challenge is. And so I think it can be a wonderful tool to help another person.
I think that if you are unwilling to be vulnerable, to put yourself out there, or frankly to explore yourself, right? You could not be willing to be vulnerable to yourself, let alone the outside world. I think you need those things to be compassionate. I think there is a relationship. I think that may not, for some, maybe it doesn't strike them as a very overt correlation, but I think it's there.
There were two different kinds of leadership. President of the university and head of the General Mills Foundation, where you had the power of the pen and decision making for grant making. And so many people saw the money as a tool to empower people, but quite often it was giving them voice, clearing the rooms and hearing them speak. You hadn't made a grant at all. You just listened to them. That's empowering them. So I had enough experience coming to that job from my previous work that I recognized that. But most importantly, growing up in the country, I knew what it was like to be voiceless. But that talking about the leader, opening up, not only in certain situations will I recall for people my background as a source of knowledge, because I don't want them to think, oh, here comes one of those sob stories again, and I'm tired of hearing about that. Wanting sympathy, wanting understanding, and I sometimes you do have to bear down and say, I know what I have earned the right to talk about this.
The best leaders that I've ever seen almost always do self-disclosure. And sure, there may be too much information, but the degree to which we can express our vulnerability and who we really are, and our fears, and our hopes, and our dreams, honestly, openly, transparently, it creates the space for everybody else to do the same thing.
I think it always has to be there. It's kind of like, is there a role for an umbrella if it's not raining? Well, if you don't have the umbrella with you, it's not going to be of much good when it does rain.
Does something have to be imperfect for us to develop compassion? Do we need to cultivate an empathy for someone else if we get along with them totally and we don't have to imagine to ourselves, oh, I wonder what it would be like to have, bad sight in one eye, or to have an illness that can't be resolved. But what if everything is just fine? Do we need compassion?
Yes, I mean, if there is no suffering in a situation, there is still a place for compassion. Compassion doesn't only exist in a negative situation. Compassion can be, seeing people who are having a wonderful, lovely time and contributing to enhance that or expand on that.
Just by nature of being born a human being in this form, in this lifetime, that there will be loss and there will be change and things will happen that we wish didn't, but it's not always so apparent. So if you think of people walking around who, aren't necessarily showing that they're suffering and they're able to mask it, there is, that's a person that's carrying a lot because of their just being born a human being.
We read about episodes every day where we see pass people on the street who look perfectly healthy and are in great shape. And I got to tell you, you never know. You never know what's really going on there. So even just a kind word daily to someone without just abruptly walking by can make a huge, huge difference. You have no idea what's going on in the minds of other people, really none. And you realize that more and more the older you get.
Well, I would argue that there's a lot that we don't see, right? And that was certainly my experience. I was walking around looking like, a regular human on the outside, and then on the inside, I was really, really struggling. And we know that, we say, oh, everyone has a story, and we know that intellectually, but we sort of forget. But it's true. Everyone has their, struggles. And so I think that even when you can't see suffering necessarily, we can have an awareness that all of us need belonging and need, meaning. And there's these things that all of us long for and need that we can help perpetuate even when we don't necessarily see suffering happening.
I think the notion that there is no suffering is probably faulty to begin with. But I don't want to beg the question. I think the complexity of human beings is such that there is bound to be something in there that needs support or response, or affirmation is a word that's often used. So I think affirmation is important, with or without suffering.
Whether they're suffering or not, and whether I see it or not, may not make any difference, but just being present for someone may allow them to grow in ways that they didn't even realize. So I think if we could all be more present with one another, we might see more needs, we might see more, we might call it suffering or just needs. And we might be able to grow together as a community, as a culture, where everyone sees one another.
I think that we should always be fully present to other people and what we're experiencing. So that's how I define compassion. So yes, I think there's a risk where we can overstep. Someone says something and then we try to fix it, or we sense something that may not be there. And so I might say, oh, don't worry about that. And a person can then feel unheard or unseen. So I think that there's like a risk in overstepping in terms of compassion, in terms of wanting to fix or, coddle someone.
We all have scarce resources internally, or at least we experience our resources until we can build them up. And we have scarce resources to address a lot of the problems. So how to balance the constant amplification and expansion and widening of our capacity for compassion with our ability to actually do something about the suffering we see. That's a tremendous challenge for the human community.
We're all suffering all the time. I mean, the amount and for what and stuff varies, and certainly there are times of very extreme suffering where, of course, humanity pours out with compassion when it wasn't there the day before. And I think it's like a little muscle that you have to use all the time. If it's just a way of how you are in the world, then whether you're dealing with the everyday, I'm 5 minutes late for something because the person in front of me got lost and didn't know what they were doing and blocked off the road, and I can either be angry at them or I can be compassionate for the frustration they're feeling. Or we just lost 40,000 people in a hurricane. It's the same emotion, it's the same ability to connect with the humanity. So I think there's a place for it in everything we do.
In our day-to-day existence, when life is more or less fine, I don't think you really recognize or understand how much compassion and good in the world and in people there really is. It's somewhat unfortunate, I think, but sadly, compassion really comes out in tragedy. More than not. We see that on a national level. If there's a national tragedy, everybody sort of rises to the occasion to show their support. We see that, locally, we see that in our circle of friends and family, that when something bad happens, whether it's close and personal to somebody we love and care about, whether it's more generic in terms of our country, people kind of step up. And I think what's unfortunate is that why do we only do that when it's a tragedy? How, and I guess that's the $64,000 question, is how do we show more compassion, more kindness, more human engagement day to day?
I think there's always a role for compassion, because compassion isn't something that you do occasionally. I think compassion should become a part of your daily life. It should be how you lead your life, how you live, by being sensitive to other people.
I don't think I can't think of a reason I would do that.
No, it's not my nature to withhold compassion.
No. I have never withheld compassion. I would say because I've been so quick to understand other people. I have a sincere interest in people.
The thought that came to mind. There's some times when I don't feel they're deserving of it. They've pissed me off. And I'm just being selfish. I'm not going to disclose that. I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think that that's a positive thing. But, you wanted other factors, and that has, in some cases, where I've sort of, you've really been frustrating me, and, I'm not feeling the love.
Sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to put a heavy hand on the table and just say, I'm not doing it, because you can confuse compassion with enabling.
Yeah, I have. I think that I felt like my compassion was abused, and so there was a point where I just kind of drew the line. And I think I did a good job of setting that boundary ahead of time.
In order to stop people from punching you, sometimes you have to punch back. You just can't sit there and block it. And so when I've had to punch back and limit set, it's still done with compassion, but it's done with compassion with an understanding that you are going to harm yourself. And if you're going to harm yourself, you're also going to harm me, and you're going to harm people around me. Then we need to stop that.
So I've never withheld, but it might be, depending on a particular circumstance, what's called for, So it's more like a question that I might even ask myself, like, what's called for in this moment?
Oh, I'm sure I have. I mean, yeah, because we're not perfect, and not always in that open heart space, filtering things through and being with someone, truly being with them. Sometimes it's too painful. Sometimes there's not time. Sometimes it triggers you in certain ways. Yes. Sometimes you just got to get a job done. And those are all real things. And that's where self-compassion comes in, to like, how busy am I? Why am I not, I'm feeling that I'm not on track here and that I'm not being who I want to be.
Genuine compassion is compelling. It's not compassion if it doesn't create some sort of obligation. It's not compassion if it's not generative of some action. Even it's of an action of saying, I can't believe this is the world I live in, maybe, which is itself an action. But it's not compassion if it's not generative, but it's very hard to be generative at that level all the time.
Can't think of a time when I kind of have consciously been like, I'm going to withhold my compassion. It's more like, oh, damn, I'm not acting compassionately. But something's blocking the connection. And it feels more like I'm stuck behind an ice wall than that I am consciously withdrawing from.
I hope I haven't done that much, and I hope I haven't done it in a way that has harmed people, but I'm sure that there have been times when I haven't been at my, I can't think of anyone who's always at their most compassionate place. But I don't like to think that that's how I've acted, though of course, that must have happened.
I do find myself in moments where I realize that I thought I was doing the right thing, but it wasn't the right thing. And so I'm learning all the time, because I think it is one of those lifetime learning things. And I think to be a good compassionate leader, you have to recognize the limitations of your own ability to be compassionate.
Sometimes we don't know where the seeds we plant go. And it's interesting because I've had that come up a lot recently, of people out of the clear blue sky walking back across my path and saying, 16 years ago, 25 years ago, you said this to me, I saw you doing this. I've had probably 3 of these circumstances happen in the last 2 months. And it changed my life. It saved my life. I'm a different person than I would have been. And you're like, wow, I don't even remember, that happening. But to know that sometimes those little things that you do have this impact, and it's having these ripples out there, and you're totally unaware. And for most of them, we may never be aware.
So my goal is to be a compassionate person, but sometimes I slip up. An old tendency comes up before I have a chance to counter it. And usually when that happens, the results are not very satisfying. Usually it means that I wasn't being totally honest with a person, or I wasn't giving that person space to be who they are. So it's noticeable. But part of the practice of compassion, I think, is having compassion with yourself when you do make those kinds of errors, and recognizing that it is part of the studentship process, that you have to make mistakes to make progress.
Even though at 82 I look gentle and sweet and compassionate, I also was pretty hard driving and a lot of energy. And I would charge around and do things and tell people to do things and blah, blah, blah. And broker came in one morning. He said, did you notice anything when you went by the desk? I said, no. he said, Ella was crying because of what you said to her. I many times was too assertive about my will, what I wanted to be done, you know.
I'm sure I have. I'm sure I've been sort of done, overwhelmed. I mean, I've experienced, you know, working with people who really do need the more sort of alpha sort of style. And so how I would offer them compassion wouldn't necessarily be how they wanted it. And so there have been times when in an organization or in a group, somebody might not be a good fit for this leadership style. And so that's happened for sure. If I don't show compassion, I usually I will feel pretty badly about it, and usually try to make things right around that.
Again, you've got to think about whether you would have felt at that moment that the compassion would have helped. But I think you always have at times you second guess yourself, have regrets, and maybe I should have done more. Could I have done more in this instance? I'm not a great believer in carrying a tremendous amount of guilt forever. I think 24-hour guilt is probably a pretty good thing, but get back on it the next day and get moving to do something about it. Yeah.
Not really. I think that another quality is that maybe it's my big brown eyes. I don't know. People tend to be compassionate with me. And honestly, if I didn't get the compassion, I was taking advantage of that leader. So I can be honest about that. I think that I've had a really good run.
As a leader, there have been times I do my best not to need, to be, but there have been times, because need is a mindset of scarcity. So needing compassion, but wanting it, yes, there's been times where, an example would be I was working on a documentary on human trafficking, and I was speaking with a lot of very wealthy financiers who could have financed this with the interest that they make in a week. And I was sometimes even promised this, and I worked on this for a few years, working to raise the money for this, and again found this lack of compassion.
To answer your question, do you need it? Do you need it? Again, as a human being, I think we all need a little compassion, but as the leader, you need to be able to do without.
Have you ever had an experience where you needed compassion and you didn't get it? I don't think anybody could say, no, that's never happened to me. I think there's clearly it has. As a leader, I don't know. That's a harder thread to needle to thread, because what does that mean? How do you draw the line between I need compassion as a leader versus I need compassion as a person? I'm not sure there is a distinction, because you are a person while you're also being a leader, if you are in your position or in your community.
Oh yeah, I think so. I think as someone who's a kind of the caregiver like I am, it's hard to receive sometimes. So I think it's been offered, but I haven't been able to take it in. And so I'm working on that.
I mean, and so when I need it is especially when I make a mistake. And, a mistake that might, maybe if I act in a way that's unkind or reactive. The compassion I would hope for is that people would understand, like, oh, this isn't like all of who you are, and this not condemning me to being a terrible person, a terrible leader, but just like, oh, I made a mistake. I wonder what else is happening.
Yeah. I can think of some incidences with colleagues where they've been busy and in their own thing, and senior to me, not always so compassionate. However, I think if you have enough around you of support, that's not as important. You can find it in other ways, and people fill in, and so you can easily make up for that and work through it. Yeah, and the couple instances I'm thinking of, I would say that people thought that they were doing their best to be compassionate. You know what I mean? It just wasn't what I needed, the way the response was in the moment. So maybe just not a perfect link up.
This is why I think inner strategies are so important, because we're not always going to receive compassion from people, whether it's because people are busy, people have a lot of stuff going on in their lives, or have inner struggles, inner suffering happening. You never know why somebody's not being compassionate. It's challenging to look at a person who's making decisions that are impacting thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people. It's difficult to look around the world at various leaders that have caused a lot of death and destruction and to have compassion. And yet they desperately need compassion. They need wishes of well-being, because I think that much of the strife is based on fear and ignorance and the turmoil within their own minds.
It's really hard when you're a leader and there isn't compassion and there isn't empathy, and it's really negative. And how to have terra firma, how to have a sense of like, what is going on here? What did I do wrong? How did I screw up? So a lot of self-criticism and all that kind of thing. That's rough. It's really rough and confusing.
So there have been certainly times where I've been with a student or with another faculty member that I have felt has been hostile, that I've had to really work to remember. Often that hostility or that anger often comes out of their own fear. They're having their own internal experience about what's going on. This is the way that they're expressing it, and it's not about me. And if I can come back to that place, then it's easier for me to come into a place of kind of understanding and a compassionate response back to them.
Not receiving compassion is a combination of what I bring to the interaction, what people know about me, what I choose to share, and how they might respond to that, as well as how they as individuals respond to what I'm bringing. So I think that there's sort of a moving indicator there of how much I share and what the response is. If I don't tell people that I'm suffering, I can't expect that they will read my mind and respond in a certain way. But sometimes you want them to,
Well, I mean, obviously Ben's death is my big sort of marker, my before-after marker, but that pain has allowed me to connect with people in a completely different way.
Well, in terms of my sort of most significant life experience with compassion, I mean, it absolutely goes towards my experience with Kelsey. And it just kind of reiterates what I said earlier. It goes back to those 5.5 months that she was battling cancer, and the period after she passed, the compassion that people so graciously showed myself and my family was incredible.
One was when my mother passed, and the other one was when my husband passed. They gave me another role in life, it seemed. And they revealed to me another kind of leadership role, leadership amongst my family members, and responsibility, a different kind of responsibility from what I'd known in the workplace. I tried to be both parents, be the husband and the mother and the father, be the grandmother and the grandfather. I felt that I needed to step in his shoes.
I was with my mother as she was dying, and being able to be present with her and to show her compassion and not to be attending to my own feelings or my own impulses at that time it was very fulfilling. I mean, it elevated that experience to one of the most profound that I've had in my life. When my mother passed away, I was holding her hand, and it was one of those moments of awe where you're in the presence of something way beyond what you normally experience. And I think being in that position of openness and compassion allowed me to experience the totality of that death of my mother, which might have been a very tragic kind of experience, but it added a whole nother dimension to it because of that connection of compassion that was there.
I was still working under the premise that I had special ed needs. I was not as bright. My GPA at the time was like a 2, which isn't that great. But I was in the library and I was studying, and I was going through special ed parameters. And I looked and I started to make connections in my brain. And I started to identify that X is to Y and Y is to Z. I have a hearing disability, and all my hearing disabilities plugged right into special ed, special needs, in such a way where it wasn't that my brain had a problem, it was that I couldn't hear. And so that was self-compassion, because when I realized that, the anger went away. And I started to realize that I wasn't dumb. And I wanted to read every book I could. And I didn't read a lot before then, because I didn't, why try? Why read? Why study? Why do anything? No one expects anything. And I went from that mindset to, I'm going to eat and read everything I can. And I went from a GPA of a 2 to a 3.8 within a semester. And what it did, that self-compassion, allowed me to put aside the categorization of people's, for better or for worse. They didn't try to do that. They just did it. They were told. And so I didn't have anger at my parents or the teachers. I had a realization that I wasn't in that cage and I was free.
One of the most powerful stories I've been able to tell about my relationship with my former husband was the result of doing a coaching class. The coach asked us one day, he gave us a homework assignment, which is one of the most difficult things I ever had to do. He told us to call the person in our lives with whom we had the biggest problem interpersonally. And to take responsibility for what had gone wrong in the relationship, 100% responsibility. And then to ask that person for forgiveness. Take full responsibility for, in this case, a marriage that failed, that started out well and that failed, was very painful. So, but when I did it, and I said, I always blamed you for what went wrong, and I realized now that I was responsible and that I had also created situations where you would be hard pressed or not look good, or you would look like you were the person at fault. And I, as I look back over all this, I see where I was, and I'm responsible. And so I'm calling to ask you for forgiveness. And there was a huge silence at the other end. And then my former husband said, you can't imagine how important this conversation is to me. And then he said the same thing again. You can't imagine how important this conversation is to me. And then he said, and of course I forgive you. And that changed our relationship forever.
I was at high school where I volunteer, and a kid was in the office talking to some of the staff, and the kid was wearing like a lot of cologne, really strong perfume or cologne or something. And I felt like I didn't like the smell of it, and I thought it was too much, and I felt something rising that was aversion or distaste for it. And then I found out that kid has cancer, and that kid's been doing chemo, and the kid has like a bad breath or like a smell that he's ashamed about. And that's why he was wearing so much cologne. And it just kind of like it was a good reminder. If I had been leading more with compassion in that moment, I wouldn't have been judging, oh, I don't like strong scents, or that. I would have been thinking like, you know, there's a human and that's what they're doing, and maybe I don't know the story.
A kid that was had decided to end his life, and he was taken to the crisis response center here in Tucson. I somehow connected with him, and I went to see him. I guess people would say it took a lot of compassion to spend time with him. And all of that was all fine and dandy. The guy, you know, he's alive today, but that still didn't really showed me or it really didn't tell me the role that compassion had played within my style of leadership, if you will. The life-shifting experience was not at the moment of doing what I was doing. It was 3-4 years later when my life changed, knowing that this kid, 3 or 4 years later, it was 3 years, I don't know, he came up to me and he said, look, I'm still alive because of you. That was the life-shifting experience.
So what happened, because my relationship with the Tibetan community, when my brother died, Paul Wellstone was a huge friend to that community. So the Tibetan community had, you know, after 49 days after an event, the monks do chanting from there and then they had this celebration, and they invited me and my family because of who I was to them. They wanted to honor my younger brother along with Paul Wellstone, and they gave them both a thangka. And they had this amazing service, and a number of members of my family were able to come too. But I just was like walking through and seeing all these beautiful Tibetan faces, and just felt amazing compassion for them, that they would extend this kind of compassion towards me and my family, and with all the suffering that they've been through, you know, losing their country, living in exile, and all of that. And it was just an amazing experience.
I had a spiritual crisis post 9/11 because 3 people I know died in the towers, one of whom I had officiated their marriage just recently. And I knew that religion did that from the second that I felt it. I just knew religion did it. So I really didn't go to work for 3 months. Just kind of sat in my underwear in my chair and got dressed in time for when the kids came home, because I didn't want them to see that sort of breakdown. What got me back were 2 things. When I began to read, the New York Times would cover, because of technology, the final cell phone conversations between people. And I began to read them almost like addictive and liturgical at the same time. And they were amazing. I began to collect them, and then I began to chant them in the morning. Because every single one, and I located every one that I could, not one was about revenge. Not one was, we're gonna die, get those motherfuckers for me. Every single one was some reaching out, and all these people knew they were gonna die. They were the final cell phone conversations. They were like, you know, Mommy, the building's burning. I just want to tell you, I love you. And you go, you know, it's a funny thing. In the dearness of the vanishing moment, when they know they're going to die. At that moment, love and compassion, not compassion for the people in the building. The people in the building have compassion for the people remaining behind. And that nursed me back and made me realize, oh, the job is to stop, and this shifted my career. Never again, and I use that term on purpose, never again would I ever teach Judaism to make people more Jewish, more tribal. Never again. If I had to work, if I had to live in the street, I would never make my living doing that. I would teach Judaism as a way to make sure that those final cell phone conversations were the way we acted all the time, not in the dearness of the vanishing moment.
Some of the benefits of being a compassionate leader are that you can live in alignment with your principles, and you can, and it's exciting and fulfilling to see those principles manifest in the real world.
I'm never alone. I'm never alone. It's never all on me. I always have people there with me, and there's, no matter what a difficult experience I may be having or how that feels, I feel like I have a container of other people that will help me hold that.
I think my observation is that it makes us relate to those leaders more. I think that's a positive reinforcement of the fact that we're in this together.
I think when there's trust and you're working in an authentic way and people know that you don't have hidden agendas, that you can just get more work done. I think it creates more of an environment for creativity and risk-taking and just more interesting and creative opportunities arise through that kind of relationship.
I think it's healing. I think it can be very healing for the other person and for oneself.
I think it is healing and healthy to be in the presence and space that way. So far more outweighing the drive and the climb, which is stressful and not healthy and not in balance. Compassionate leadership is in balance. It is a respect for oneself at whatever level you're leading, and a respect for others around you. And that's life-giving, and that's in service to people that you're leading, and it's in sustainability for yourself.
Compassion is an attribute of getting past the ego. And I think the ego is the thing that blocks us from full awareness of ourselves. It's the thing that gives us a distorted picture of reality. So to the extent that we can go beyond the ego, we have a much more compassionate view of the world, but also a much more accurate view of the world, because it's not distorted by our particular desires or our particular worldview.
I think it's how it makes me feel when I do something kind for someone.
I think in my case, I need to do good to survive. I need to be compassionate in order to stay alive. So in my case, it's perhaps a bit of a selfish situation.
There's that cliche about like people don't remember what you what you said or what you did, but they remember how you made them feel. I think that that's a cliche, but I think that it's true. And so I would like to have that be, I want that to be my legacy, that people might not remember what I said or did, but they remember that I made them feel a certain way.
I think it's a way of proving practically that what we say we aspire to can work, because there's the model of an ideal situation of what it would look like, and then there is life. And the benefit of it, if you have been compassionate and you are viewed as compassionate, and the organization is in a good place because you've cared about the people who are in it. It's not just about achieving a goal, but also about the cultivation of character and loyalty and friendship and collaboration along the way. That is its own reward. I mean, I don't know what else could be more rewarding than that.
I think the only challenge for compassionate leaders is ourselves as people. Change comes from within. I'm a firm believer that you have to, the great philosopher Michael Jackson said it once, you have to look at yourself, man in the mirror.
That it's not valued, that it is acknowledged as a personality characteristic, as something that's great in the one-on-one, but it is not a method of getting you in the places where you may serve on larger levels. You have to do other things for that.
The ways that we have of disconnecting person from person to substituting a technical communication for what should be a one-on-one personal communication, I think that's it is a threat.
Well, I think from my own experience, people don't know how to react in tragedy. Mine was a tragedy, and other people, if they're not self-disclosing, if they're not vulnerable, they don't necessarily know how to accept help. And then in my particular case, people just don't know what to say.
So I think it's very easy to care about people that you're close to, right? Like to your family or your close friends. But I think actually one of the things that I'm working on is really equalizing my care for others. So to have the same level of care for a stranger, to listen to them in a way that I would listen to a close friend. So that's something that I'm working on.
What a difficult time we have feeling compassion and showing kindness to two sides of a story. This is something that I'm working on in my own head. It's fascinating to see that it's so easy for us to jump to compassion for this person in the situation, but we can't get there for this person in the situation. And what would the world be like if we could say, yeah, this person did make a mistake and hurt this person, but we have compassion for this person too, and why they were in that situation, or maybe why they even made the mistake. Can we do that on both sides?
People see others as other, and in seeing someone as an other, they can dehumanize and separate themselves from another's experience. I think compassion unifies us all together, again, where we all lift each other up, but we also are all in it together. There's no separation. There's no me and them. There's just us. And how do we get through this together? And that's where I think compassion is really essential.
One challenge might be to help us understand that the other person is deserving of your compassion, your feeling. We have a lot of we have sometimes crime in communities, and we are quick to realize who's hurting, who's been affected the most severely by the crime. But when we think about it, the family of the perpetrators are hurting too. So do you reach out for them? So recognizing who's vulnerable out there, and being willing to say that those who some would say not deserving, they are deserving of your consideration.
And again, it's a matter of checking your motives, so that if you are dealing with, say, a hateful action or a hate group, you're not mirroring their behavior, but you're coming at it from a more compassionate space. And part of that is acknowledging that even the person who's your opponent has some shared humanity there. There's some level that you can reach where you have in common with that person, even if their ideology seems to be completely opposite of yours. So I think it's difficult when you're dealing with social problems, but I think it is possible.
Little girls get to have support for feelings. It's okay. But for little boys to cry or have those feelings has been much more difficult. It's changing rapidly, but in many places, it's really not okay. So I think that we need to address that. I think that we have an abusive society. We have a history of it. It's a learned behavior. We've watched it and transmitted it.
I think we really do need to have more spaces where we can practice compassion, where we can learn about compassion. There's a certain taking for granted that if you're a good person, you're compassionate. But I think it takes work.
I think there's a connection with their humanity, right? I feel like, oh, they're not up here on this pedestal. They're just like me, right? And I can relate to them in that way.
I don't see it a lot, but when I do, it's the honesty. And it's the people are able to follow a leader who's able to be honest and to be open and to acknowledge that I've made a mistake. And if I've made a mistake, I'm here to fix it and not just say I made a mistake.
I have seen almost immediately there the label of honesty put on. They then are perceived to be honest, and you do want to come across as being honest, but also you want to come across as being trustworthy.
I think that I'm more likely to hitch my wagon to a compassionate leader. I'm more likely to feel inspired by someone who I would also want to spend time with as a human. I'm more likely to give my heart and give my work and give my time to someone who's caring. Why would I want to hang out with or offer my labor to someone who wasn't compassionate?
I have the intention to be compassionate and kind. I'm not always compassionate and kind, but I have the intention to. And I think that if I can hold that intention as best as I can on a day-to-day basis, that's useful not only for me, but it's useful for other people as well. And it's the same, when I see people that are compassionate, that are leaders, that are compassionate, that inspires me, so it goes both ways.
So I believe that this whole endeavor has to be done simultaneously from ground up and top down. And it doesn't work if it's only one of those. Right? So we have to be sure and assiduously work towards electing people who are going to be role models for us, for how we want our children to behave and how we want that person who represents us to behave in the world. And as we see now what's happening, not just here, but in other countries around the world, when the person that is the representative of a nation is not a role model, all hell breaks loose.
So many people in places of power today are self-absorbed. They're looking for their own power. They're trying to build their own power. They're trying to build their own wealth. They're trying to do this. It's a very avaricious kind of quality that you see in our world today among leaders. And there's no way that our society can be compassionate unless the leaders are compassionate. At least a tipping point of them.
It's a critical need for leaders to be compassionate. But again, not doing it to people or for people, but with people, and helping them become self-sufficient and self-reliant.
I think sometimes it's more the exception than the rule that we're actually met with other compassionate leaders versus kind of hardline power control kind of dynamics. So I have empathy when I have employees from corporations come and talk to me about the dysfunction in the business world, and people in clinical settings tell me about the dysfunction there. We see it everywhere. And so certainly, yeah, I've experienced it in clinical work, I've experienced it in board work, I've experienced it in my academic work. It's pretty prevalent. I think compassionate leadership is still definitely in the minority of what we encounter in our world. It's certainly been true for me.
Humor. Sometimes I don't think there's anything in the world funnier than people. And life is full of possibilities, but you can't live a long life without knowing that there can be sadness, heartbreak, along with the joy. And if you see that day by day, you know there's a little humor there.
Well, I talk about it constantly. I want to keep it in the air. So, and again, for us at Ben Spells, kindness is the word, but compassion is right in there. And so, our mission is really to keep kindness in the air and keep the conversation up. Ask the question, what is the kind thing to do here? What would a kind response be? This problem, we're having this conflict. What would it look like if it was a kind interaction? What would that look like? And really being willing to have some tough conversations about what we need to do in order to create the climate, the culture, the space that we need in order to handle problems that way.
I recognize once I got introduced to organizational leadership, where you have a group of people that, to make up an organization and to get the mission done that for my organizations that I was charged to lead and help get things done through. I needed to rely on other people. So the question is, how could I engage them? Then engaging people became an art.
So leading by example, but also educating, showing people ways to do it. For example, we're now doing sustainability for a big concert production company. And by setting up recycling in a really easy to understand way and compost, people are able to walk up and instead of just throwing all their stuff into one bin, they read the signage, and then they make a decision, with the knowledge and engagement that the signage and the different colored bins provide. Whereas prior to our involvement, there'd just be sometimes a recycling bin, sometimes a garbage bin, sometimes, they'd be near each other, but usually not. And people just throw everything in whatever was handy. So sometimes you cultivate it by really showing them the way and giving them the tools.
Modeling, acknowledging your mistakes and acknowledging shortcomings. I think that it goes a long way toward allowing people to, be more compassionate towards you or to view you in a more positive way. So I think the best leader is the one that models that process of leadership, and it's something that you can continue to work on.
Having compassion for oneself, one's feelings, how we see ourselves, loving ourselves, being okay with wherever we are, without judgment, with acceptance, is extremely important for our own health and our own well-being. And then, hopefully, in addition to that compassion for ourselves, we can have compassion for other people.
I'm starting with doing more of the self-compassion practices, giving myself what I would give somebody else as best I can, and then trying to be more mindful in those situations where I might shut down or, push something away to allow it, Yeah. It's very vulnerable to receive. And I think I'm more comfortable and used to giving as a defense. Yeah.
And practice most days, and but have a component of compassion practice within that meditation. This whole piece, so internally, like self-compassion, like learning, I'm trying to learn how to take breaks, take vacations, prioritize my own self-care, that. So that is a compassion for myself, and then it's very vivid that when I'm doing that, I'm much more available to be compassionate to others. When I'm not doing that, it's that way I just described acting is how I will tend to act. And so figuring out what's this balance between success in terms of metrics and connection and compassion.
Compassion's a practice. It's not just, you have to practice it, and if you practice it, you become good at it and better at it. So yes, I have a prayer practice. I have particular rituals and like those, and then I have really very good people around me who, whether it's my wife, 35 years we're married, my children, I have a 29-year-old and a 26-year-old who are very developed. I have 5 younger brothers, and these are all people in my life. And I have amazing colleagues and who help me become better.
It's just kind of who you are, who I am in the world. I don't think about it like I do one thing for leadership or one thing for work. I have found over years the hard way that the more congruent I can be in my whole life all the time, the more at ease I am, the healthier and happier I feel. So I want who my husband knows, and I want who my daughter knows, and I want who my boss knows to all be the same person. So yeah, it's not just something you put on when, I go to work and I'm going to move into my compassionate leadership place, and I'm a different human being at home. No, it's a matter of, can I be a full-hearted, honest, transparent, kind, compassionate human being, and then can I just bring that to work, whatever my work looks like. And sometimes leadership is happening in places it isn't work.
I find it very healing to have close people who know and love me when I know the relationship is as it is, that I can be who I am and I can still be a colleague next to them and we support each other. That helped me get through, quite honestly.
I have to take care of myself. That's how I cultivate compassion, and that's not an easy thing for me. So I have a regular practice. I have a religious tradition that I participate in. I try to make sure that I have enough time at home and with my husband and my dogs, because they nurture me and they help keep me strong enough to continue to be a compassionate leader.
it's an ever-evolving process. How do I cultivate compassion? I think through meditation and through mindfulness. Why I go to classes every week here in the city, and I go to retreats, and I also teach. So I think that it's reminding ourselves to, within our meditations, to connect, and outside of meditation, to always be connecting to people.
Whenever people tell me about IKEA, I would be like, I've never been. And their reaction's like, you've never been to IKEA? Oh my God. And so I thought to myself, well, the first time I go to IKEA, I have to make it special. So I wore a fuzzy bear outfit that I have. It's like a head with paws and everything. And part of this was just my own sense of getting a kick out of pattern disruption, and I like attention. But I turned what can be like this intense experience of running fast through a place where there's with strangers and I got to buy things, and into a pleasurable experience for people. Everyone I encountered, they look at me sideways like, this dude is weird, like, should I approach him? But I was normalized by being there with my pregnant wife, and we're walking paw in hand, and so when I would look at people in the eye, I would smile at them and they'd smile back. And I was this little 2-year-old with Down syndrome, and he was like who is this bear? And he like hugged me and he was delighted. I do this a lot. I walk down the street this way. I went to like a birthday thing this year, and I walked down the street that way, or last year. And I used to do this with like kind of a chip on my shoulder. Like I'd look at people in the eye and I'd smile, and I'd be like, oh, you're not looking at me, you're not smiling at me. Like, what's wrong with you? And realizing that that's that person's experience. And I don't know what, right? The trickiest thing is that we can see everything about ourselves but this. And so we don't know what our face looks like, and so I try to broadcast a certain way. And so look people in the eye, smile. Sometimes I get a smile back. Usually I get the look away, right? It's maybe a little bit, it's scary for people to be looked at in the eye by a stranger, but I don't look at anyone as a stranger. And really having that frame helps me to be in a compassionate mode all the time. It's tough. Oh my God, I'm feeling emotional right now. Like, I work in San Francisco and I see like human tragedy on my walk to work every day. So I too would like to just put a wall up and not look at anybody, and I choose not to do that. And so there's a way in which I have a morning practice. I do yoga, I meditate, I read, I write. And so I give myself 3 full hours, I try to, before I even like open my laptop, so that I can get into that way of being and really prepare to be this kind of loving warrior who walks.
Well, don't be afraid of being called a softie in relating to people you work with, people you supervise. Don't expend too much energy trying to be hard-nosed, be tough. For me, that will take a lot of energy. And I said, don't use your energy and be resourceful. I believe in being resourceful in the use of your mental energy, physical energy, all kinds of energy.
I think I think that we have to let people know that being a leader and being compassionate are not mutually exclusive, and that and that it is a net value to your work and to your leadership to be compassionate. I think that that's the starting point.
Right? Leaders and followers are in a dance, always. Right? You show me good leaders, I'll show you really good followers, which means they know how to hold leaders accountable. Which, of course, when followers are holding leaders accountable, who's the leader? So I would say, as I'm reflecting on this, one is leaders have to be able to look in the mirror really, really seriously and say, am I walking the walk?
That's a really hard question. I don't know that there's a simple answer to that. I think that it's a starting point. Try it on. If you don't feel like you're being compassionate and kind, whether that's in your personal life or your professional life, try it on. Practice a little bit, get comfortable with it, see how it goes. You'll probably like it. Do more of it.
Well, I think the best way to do that is to show up as a compassionate leader to the best of your ability. I think that the ability to not be afraid to demonstrate compassion as it's called for, to be authentic in who you are.
Model it, reward it, call it out and affirm it. I think the lack of recognition of it makes it feel invisible sometimes.
I try to support them by being a compassionate person in society and speaking out, in a compassionate way whenever possible.
Modeling extra, outside of the business. So that can be going to talks, and if the leaders in a certain company don't know how to create a culture or revamp the culture or whatever it is, so that they lead with compassion, there are plenty of organizations, and the Bay Area, but there's stuff online, so getting the resources you need.
When someone does something right, complimenting them. When someone does something wrong, try to show them why that is not in their own self-interest, why occasionally we're our own worst enemy. Pointing that out, being very direct. Again, self-disclosing maybe that, hey, I've been there in this situation, this is what I see.
I don't think I would push compassion into others. I think that if you're a leader, you have to have compassion already. I think I would push other things, drive. But compassion is something that it's so deep. I don't think you can just pass it on to somebody. You lead by example, and I know I was saying that earlier. You can lead by example all day long, and you can show all sorts of compassion and hope that people would follow suit. But you can't just push it onto people and say, "Hey, here's your compassion now." And I don't think you can. I think that to be a true leader, you have to have compassion.
You can't manufacture it, and you can spot a phony from 1,000 feet. You've got to, however different the experience might be from your personal experience, you've got to get into where they are, where he or she is, and you can't just pretend to be, or you can't be looking at it from afar. No, I don't think so. It's got to be, I call it instinctive. It's got to be authentic.
I think it has a ripple effect, and it is like when you throw a stone and the ripples go to the ends of the shore. When you are compassionate, I think the other person senses that and wants to be that way for somebody else, and that is how you advance compassion.
Everybody is a compassionate leader if they choose to be. You could be, it doesn't matter if you're the leader of a country, or if you are leader of a department in your company, or if you are a busboy or janitor or a stay-at-home mom. You're a leader in your own life. Making each decision you make can be a compassionate one, or it can be a non-compassionate one. And it's up to you. So you are a leader in the sense that you have sovereignty over your decisions.
It's a big issue today politically. We don't have enough people voting. We tend to be splintered. That ability today to bring us together is probably more important than ever. It's frightening, very frightening kind of time.
People will think compassion is kind of soft and like not having direct and difficult conversations, not making boundaries, not standing up for one's own needs, not kind of calling out what's not, sort of that kind of strength or sharpness, which I think sometimes is actually deeply compassionate.
I think that there's so many other ways that we've been raised to objectify, to consume, to see the other. All of these things are massive barriers to us really being able to connect and to be healthy.
We like to make everything a competition, and that is true of grief. My grief is worse than your grief. And the one thing I've obviously, been very fortunate to receive a lot of compassion from a lot of different people over the last couple of years. And one of the things I've heard over and over again, when I met with somebody who's, lost their spouse or had a tragedy in their life, oftentimes they will say, but it's not like your grief, and I'm like, wrong answer.
But it's also wonderful if you can get to the point where just the little everyday kinds of things, how do you respond compassionately in addition to in the face of some large disaster? So it's just a matter of a mindful practice, I think, of just trying to think about what's the most compassionate thing to do in this moment. How can I serve this moment?
And this is what's changing, I feel like, that they want to compartmentalize compassion and kindness into certain parts of our life. Like, oh yeah, at home, of course, with my family, or at church, but not at work, not in politics, and I think that what we're starting to understand is that this isn't, you don't need to compartmentalize this, that it needs to be everywhere in everything we do, and that it serves us everywhere.
We're not limited, we're not fixed, we don't have this set amount of compassion. So we can look around the world and say, hey, are we lacking compassion? Yeah, I think we're lacking compassion, it's pretty clear. But it's not hopeless, it's not fixed, because compassion is born, within, and we can change profoundly.
I think there's good evidence that to be compassionate is also to connect you, and to be connected also makes it more likely that you feel actualized yourself. You feel that you are okay because you're connecting with other people in some ways.
If I said I was the best compassionate person in the world, I'd be a liar. So it's always working on myself and working with others, adapting, correcting. Of course, there are practices that we can do, but it's really all about being honest with ourselves, and being honest with the results of what we do. I chill and take care of myself as much as possible. And I enjoy life. I truly, I'm not a teetotaler. I'm a human that really enjoys life to its fullest. And that means hanging out with friends. That means sitting quietly. And that means everything in between.
Humans are sensitive. But I do believe in the possible goodness of humans and humans as an asset to solve those problems. Amazing deeds by other people, building trust, sharing information, acts of kindness. That those are not softies that people are, they're just showing consideration toward people and recognizing what an amazing creation the human being, human spirit is. I'm yearning for us to fill the void there, leadership void that I think we're sensing, and be compassionate toward each other while we do that.